I never meant to say it out loud. Not like that anyway. Not with Elena standing right there, arranging flowers in the vase on our dining table. But after 5 years of marriage and countless nights of disappointment, the words just came out during our breakfast. You don't satisfy me in bed anymore, Robert. The moment the words left my mouth, I knew I had crossed a line. The kitchen fell silent. The only sound was the soft thud of Elena's scissors hitting the floor. I couldn't look at her. I couldn't look at my husband either. Robert sat across from me, coffee mug halfway to his lips, frozen. His face drained of color, then flushed deep red. His eyes darted to Elena, who was pretending very hard to be invisible, then back to me. I think I misheard you, he said quietly, setting his mug down with such careful control that I knew he was furious. What did you just say, Diane? I wanted to take it back. I wanted to laugh it off as a bad joke. But I was tired of pretending. I was tired of lying next to him night after night, feeling nothing but emptiness. I said, and my voice was steadier than I expected, that you don't satisfy me in bed anymore. Elena mumbled something about checking on the laundry and practically ran from the room. The sound of her footsteps faded down the hallway. You said this in front of Elena? Are you out of your mind? Robert hissed, leaning forward. What the hell is wrong with you? I'm sorry about the timing, I said, though I wasn't entirely sorry. Maybe I needed a witness. Maybe I needed someone else to hear it so I couldn't take it back later. But it doesn't change the truth. The truth. He laughed without humor. And what's that exactly? That you decided to humiliate me in front of our household staff. She's not just staff, Robert. She's... I don't care what she is to you. You don't say things like that in front of other people. You don't say things like that, period. I took a deep breath. I've tried talking to you about this for months. Years even. You never listen. You never change anything. So this is your solution? Public humiliation. He pushed away from the table so violently his chair nearly toppled over. This is how you solve problems in a marriage. I'm not trying to humiliate you, I said, though part of me knew that wasn't entirely true. I had wanted to hurt him. I had wanted him to feel the pain and frustration I'd been feeling. I'm trying to be honest with you. Honest. He spat the word like a curse. Fine. You want honesty? Let's be honest. He began pacing the kitchen. You think I don't know you're unhappy? You think I can't tell when you're just going through the motions? But I've been trying, Diane. I've been working 60-hour weeks to give you everything you want. This house. The vacations. The clothes. The car. I never asked for those things, I said. I asked for you. Your time. Your attention. And what about what I need? He stopped pacing and stared at me. Have you ever once thought about that? I opened my mouth to defend myself, then closed it. Had I really considered what Robert needed from me, or had I been too focused on what I wasn't getting? I don't know what you need, I admitted finally. You never tell me. Because you never ask. He slammed his palm on the counter, making me jump. You're so caught up in your own dissatisfaction that you can't see past it. We stared at each other across the kitchen, the distance between us feeling greater than ever before. How had we gotten here? When had we stopped seeing each other? When had we stopped trying to understand each other? I think, Robert said, his voice eerily calm now, that I need some space to think. Space. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means I can't be in this house right now. It means I need to figure out if this is even worth saving anymore. Are you, I couldn't bring myself to say the word, asking for a divorce? He ran a hand through his hair, looking suddenly exhausted. I don't know, Diane. Maybe that's where we're headed. The word hung in the air between us. Divorce. After 5 years, was this how our story would end? With a careless comment at the breakfast table? You can't be serious, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Why not? You just told me I'm a failure as a husband in one of the most fundamental ways. In front of Elena, no less. What am I supposed to do with that? We could talk about it, I suggested. We could try to fix it. Now you want to talk? He laughed bitterly. Now you want to fix things? I've always wanted to fix things. No, you've wanted me to fix things. You've wanted me to change. But relationships don't work that way, Diane. They require both people to change, to compromise. He was right, and I hated him for it. I hated that he could see so clearly what I couldn't. I hated that he might be walking out the door. And most of all, I hated that I had pushed him to this point with my own selfishness. Robert, please, I said, standing up. Don't go. Let's talk about this. He held up his hand to stop me from approaching. I need time, Diane. I need to think. And honestly, so do you. Think about what you really want from this marriage. Think about whether you're willing to put in the work to get it. He walked out of the kitchen without looking back. A few minutes later, I heard him upstairs, opening and closing drawers. He was packing. Elena appeared in the doorway, her expression a mix of concern and embarrassment. Mrs. Lane? Is everything okay? I looked at her, this woman who had witnessed the potential end of my marriage. No, Elena. Everything is not okay. She nodded, understanding more than I gave her credit for. Would you like me to make you some tea? No, thank you. I stood up, suddenly needing to move to do something. I need to talk to my husband before he leaves. As I headed for the stairs, I wondered if it was too late. I wondered if words once spoken could ever truly be taken back. I found Robert in our bedroom, stuffing clothes into a small suitcase. He didn't look up when I entered, just kept folding shirts with sharp, angry movements. Where will you go? I asked, hovering in the doorway. To Mark's, probably. Mark was his best friend from college. They'd been close for years, though I'd seen less and less of him since our wedding. Another casualty of our slowly dying relationship. For how long? I don't know, Diane. He sighed, finally looking at me. The anger in his eyes had faded, replaced by something worse, disappointment. Until I figure things out. Can we please talk about this? I moved into the room, sitting on the edge of our bed. The bed where we'd made love countless times, where we'd laughed and cried and fought and made up. The bed where, apparently, I was no longer satisfied. What's there to talk about? He zipped the suitcase closed with finality. You made yourself pretty clear downstairs. I shouldn't have said it like that, I admitted. Especially not in front of Elena. That was wrong and I'm sorry. But you meant it. It wasn't a question. I looked down at my hands. Yes, I meant it. But there's more to it than just that. Like what? He sat down on the opposite corner of the bed, keeping his distance. I took a deep breath. When was the last time we really connected, Robert? Not just physically but emotionally. When was the last time we talked about something real, something that mattered? He thought for a moment. I don't know. We talk every day. About schedules. About bills. About what to have for dinner. We don't talk about us anymore. We don't talk about our dreams or fears or hopes. And that's my fault? It's both of our faults, I said, surprising myself with the admission. We both stopped trying. We both got comfortable in the routine. But I hesitated, trying to find the right words. I miss you, the real you. The man who used to look at me like I was the most fascinating person in the world. Robert ran a hand over his face. You think I don't look at you that way anymore? I know you don't. You look through me most of the time. Like I'm just another fixture in the house. He was quiet for a long moment. Maybe you're right. Maybe I have been taking you for granted. But Diane, you have to understand, I've been killing myself at work to build a future for us. To give you the life I thought you wanted. I never asked for that, I said softly. You didn't have to. I saw the way you looked at Melissa's new house, at Caroline's vacation photos. I wanted to give you those things. At the expense of giving me yourself? He looked away. I didn't see it that way. We sat in silence, the weight of years of miscommunication hanging between us. About what I said downstairs, I began hesitantly. I really don't want to talk about our sex life right now, he cut in. We have to talk about it sometime. Why? So you can tell me all the ways I disappoint you. His voice was bitter. No. So we can figure out how to make it better. For both of us. I inched closer to him on the bed. When was the last time you felt truly satisfied, Robert? He looked surprised by the question. Me? Yes, you. This isn't just about my needs. It's about yours too. He thought for a moment, then shrugged. It's fine. I'm fine. See, that's the problem. We've settled for fine, when we used to have amazing. We used to not be able to keep our hands off each other, remember? A small smile played at the corner of his mouth. I remember. What changed? Life changed. Work got more demanding. We got busier. Is that all? I pressed. He hesitated. No. Somewhere along the way I started feeling like Like I was just going through the motions for you. Like you weren't really present. So I stopped trying as hard. It hurt less that way. His honesty stunned me. All this time I'd been blaming him when he'd been feeling just as disconnected as I was. I didn't know, I said quietly. You never asked. He stood up, grabbing his suitcase. That's our problem, Diane. We've stopped asking. We've stopped listening. So let's start again, I suggested, standing up too. Let's start asking. Let's start listening. It's not that simple. Why not? Because you humiliated me today. His voice rose suddenly. You took something private, something intimate, and you used it as a weapon. In front of Elena, of all people. I flinched at his outburst. I told you I was sorry about that. Sorry doesn't erase it. Sorry doesn't take away the fact that every time I see Elena, I'll know that she knows. That she heard my own wife say I'm not good enough. I hadn't thought about that. About the lasting implications of my careless words. What can I do? I asked, feeling helpless. How can I fix this? I don't know if you can. He picked up his suitcase. That's why I need space. I need to figure out if I can get past this. If we can get past this. Robert, please don't go, I said, my voice breaking. We can work through this together. Not right now, we can't. He moved toward the door. I'll call you in a few days. We can talk then when I've had time to think. You're really considering divorce? I couldn't believe we'd gone from an ordinary morning to the brink of ending our marriage in the span of an hour. He paused in the doorway. I don't know what I'm considering, Diane. All I know is that something has to change. We can't go on like this. And then he was gone. I heard his footsteps on the stairs, heard him say something to Elena in the hallway, though I couldn't make out the words. Then the front door opened and closed and the house fell silent. I sank back onto the bed, our bed, suddenly feeling the enormity of what had happened. Had I just destroyed my marriage with a single thoughtless comment? Or had I simply voiced the truth we'd both been avoiding for years? A soft knock on the doorframe startled me. Elena stood there, looking uncomfortable but determined. I'm sorry, Mrs. Lane, she said. I know it's not my place, but would you like to talk? I stared at her, this woman who had witnessed the most intimate and painful moment of my marriage. This woman who, instead of gossiping or judging, was offering comfort. Actually, I said, making room on the bed beside me, I think I would. Elena sat beside me on the bed, careful to maintain a respectful distance. For 3 years she had cleaned our house, prepared our meals, and folded our laundry, yet this was the first time we'd ever sat together like this. I'm sorry you had to witness that, I said, feeling embarrassed all over again. Please don't worry about me, she said. Her accent was slight but noticeable, her English deliberate and precise. I'm more concerned about you. I made a terrible mistake, didn't I? I covered my face with my hands. I shouldn't have said that in front of you. Perhaps not, she agreed carefully. But maybe the bigger mistake was not saying it to him sooner, in private. I looked at her, surprised by her insight. You're right. We've been avoiding the hard conversations for too long. I sighed. Now he's talking about divorce. Do you think he means it? I don't know. We've never been this close to the edge before. I shook my head. How did we get here, Elena? We used to be so good together. She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. May I speak honestly, Mrs. Lane? Please. And call me Diane, for goodness sake. After what you witnessed this morning, I think we're past formalities. She smiled slightly. Diane, I have worked in your home for 3 years. In that time I have seen how you both live like, how do you say it? Like ships passing in the dark. Ships passing in the night, I corrected gently. Yes, that. You live in the same house but not together. Mr. Lane works late. You take dinner alone. When you are in the same room you are both looking at your phones. Her observations stung because they were true. When had Robert and I stopped being present with each other? We've grown apart, I admitted. But that happens in marriages, doesn't it? The passion fades. Elena shook her head firmly. It doesn't have to. My parents have been married for 42 years. They still hold hands. They still laugh together. How do they do it? I asked, genuinely curious. They work at it. Every day. My mother says love is not just a feeling, it's a choice. Every morning you must choose your husband. Every day you must choose your marriage. I let her words sink in. Had I stopped choosing Robert? Had he stopped choosing me? About what I said at breakfast, I began hesitantly. The bedroom issue. It's not just about the physical act. It's about connection. Intimacy. We've lost that. Elena nodded. This I understand. Without connection, the rest is just mechanics. I laughed despite myself. That's exactly it. It's become mechanical. Routine. When did we stop trying to please each other? When did we stop being curious about each other? These are questions you must ask him, Elena said gently. If he'll ever speak to me again. I wiped away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. He's so hurt, Elena. So angry. Yes. Because he still cares. She stood up. If he didn't care, he would not be angry. He would be indifferent. I considered this. He was right. Robert's anger meant he still had feelings invested in our relationship. That was something at least. What should I do now? I asked. Should I call him? Go after him? No, Elena said firmly. Give him the space he asked for. Use this time to think about what you want. About what you are willing to do to save your marriage. What if he really wants a divorce? Then you will face that when it comes. But don't borrow trouble from tomorrow, as my grandmother used to say. I nodded, feeling strangely calmer after talking to her. Thank you, Elena. For listening. For not judging. It is not my place to judge, she said simply. We all make mistakes. The important thing is what we learn from them. She left me then, returning to her duties as if we hadn't just had the most personal conversation of our acquaintance. I heard her downstairs, running the vacuum, the normal sounds of our household continuing despite the fact that everything had changed. I lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what Elena had said. Love is a choice. Every day you must choose your marriage. When had I stopped making that choice? My phone buzzed with a text message. My heart leapt, hoping it was Robert, but it was just my sister, Carla. Lunch today. The message read. I texted back. Can you come over instead? Emergency. Her response was immediate. Be there in 30. I was grateful for her promptness. Carla had always been my rock, the person I turned to in crisis. And this definitely qualified as a crisis. True to her word, Carla arrived exactly 30 minutes later. Elena let her in, and I heard them exchange pleasantries before Carla bounded up the stairs. What's the emergency? She asked, bursting into my bedroom. Then she saw my face. Oh shit. What happened? I think my marriage might be over, I said, my voice breaking on the last word. What? Why? She sat beside me, putting an arm around my shoulders. Talk to me. So I did. I told her everything. The comment at breakfast, Elena's presence, Robert's reaction, his talk of divorce, his departure. I even told her about my subsequent conversation with Elena, and the insights it had given me. Carla listened without interrupting, her expression growing more concerned as I spoke. Wow, she said when I finished. You really stepped in it, sis. I know, I groaned. What do I do? First of all, you give him the space he asked for. Men need to process things in their own time. That's what Elena said. Smart woman, your maid. Carla squeezed my shoulder. Second, you need to figure out what you really want. I want my husband back, I said immediately. Do you? Because from what you've told me, things haven't been great between you two for a while now. I hesitated. I want things to be better. I want us to be close again. I want. What? What do you want, Diane? I want to feel like his wife again, not just his roommate. I want to feel desired and valued and seen. Carla nodded. Those are all valid things to want. Now you need to figure out if you can get them with Robert, or if it's time to move on. I don't want to move on, I said, surprising myself with my certainty. I want to fix this. I love him, Carla. Despite everything, I still love him. Then you need to be prepared to fight for your marriage. And that means being honest about your own role in its problems. I haven't been perfect, I admitted. I've been distant too. Focused on my own needs and not his. Making assumptions instead of asking questions. That's a good start. Carla stood up. Now I'm going to make us some lunch and we're going to strategize about how you're going to win your husband back. You think I can? She smiled. I think if anyone can, it's you. You've always been stubborn as hell when you want something. As she headed downstairs, I found myself feeling something I hadn't expected. Hope. Maybe this wasn't the end of my marriage. Maybe it was just the wake-up call we both needed to start building something better. 3 days passed without a word from Robert. I checked my phone constantly, jumping every time it buzzed, but there was nothing. No calls, no texts, no emails. It was as if he had vanished from my life completely. I tried to keep busy. I went to work, came home, made awkward small talk with Elena. I even cleaned out the refrigerator, something I'd been putting off for months. Anything to stop myself from calling him, from begging him to come home before he was ready. On the 4th day, as I was getting ready for bed, my phone finally rang. Robert's name flashed on the screen and my heart leapt to my throat. "Hello." I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hi," he said. He sounded tired. "How are you?" Such a normal question, as if we were casual acquaintances rather than spouses on the brink of divorce. "I'm okay," I lied. "How about you?" "Been better." He cleared his throat. "Listen, I think we should talk. In person." "Yes," I agreed quickly. "When?" "Tomorrow? I could come by the house after work." "I'll be here." I hesitated. "Robert? Thank you for calling." "Yeah." He paused. "See you tomorrow." He hung up before I could say anything else, but it didn't matter. He was coming home, temporarily at least, and we were going to talk. It was a start. I barely slept that night, my mind racing with all the things I wanted to say to him. By morning I was exhausted but determined. This might be my only chance to save my marriage, and I wasn't going to waste it. I called in sick to work, something I rarely did, and spent the day preparing. I asked Elena to make Robert's favorite dinner, lasagna with garlic bread, and I went out and bought a bottle of the red wine we'd had on our first date. Not that I expected romance, but I wanted to remind him of better times, of what we'd once had together. By 6 o'clock, everything was ready. Elena had left for the day, the house was clean, dinner was warming in the oven, and I had changed into a simple blue dress that Robert had once said brought out my eyes. At 6:30 I heard his key in the lock. My heart pounded as I waited in the living room, trying to look casual, trying not to seem as desperate as I felt. He entered cautiously, as if he no longer belonged in his own home. He looked tired and a bit rumpled, but still handsome. Still my husband. "Hi," I said, standing up. "Hi." He set down his briefcase. "Something smells good. Elena made lasagna before she left." He nodded. "My favorite." "I remember." I gestured to the couch. "Do you want to sit? Or would you rather talk over dinner?" "Let's sit," he said, choosing the armchair rather than joining me on the couch. The distance felt significant. I sat back down, suddenly unsure where to begin. All my carefully rehearsed speeches seemed inadequate in the face of his guarded expression. "How was your stay at Mark's?" I asked finally. "Fine." He and Sarah were very accommodating. He fidgeted with his wedding ring, twisting it around his finger. He was still wearing it. That had to be a good sign. "Robert," I said, deciding to dive right in, "I am so sorry about what happened. Not just about saying that in front of Elena, but about all of it. About letting things get so bad between us without trying harder to fix them." He nodded slowly. "I've been doing a lot of thinking these past few days. About us. About where we went wrong. And..." I prompted when he didn't continue. "And I think we both stopped trying. We both got comfortable with the distance. It was easier than facing the problems." "Yes," I agreed, relieved that he saw it too. "We stopped choosing each other every day." He looked surprised. "That's an interesting way to put it." "It's something Elena said, actually. That love is a choice we have to make every day." "Smart woman." "She is." I leaned forward. "Robert, I still love you. I still choose you. And I want to work on our marriage if you're willing." He was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "I love you too, Diane. That's never been the issue." "Then what is the issue?" "Trust. Respect." He ran a hand through his hair. "I felt so emasculated when you said that in front of Elena. Like everything I thought I knew about our relationship was a lie." "It wasn't a lie," I said quickly. "We have had good times, great times. It's just lately we've been going through the motions," he finished for me. "I know. I felt it too." "So what do we do?" I asked. "How do we get back to where we were?" "I don't think we can go back," he said, and my heart sank. "I think we need to build something new. Something better." "I'd like that," I said cautiously, hope flickering within me. Very much. Me too. He finally met my eyes directly. But I need to know something first. Something honest. Anything. Are you still attracted to me? Not just physically, but do you still want me? All of me. The question caught me off guard with its vulnerability. This strong, confident man was asking if I still desired him, still wanted him. Yes, I said firmly. God, yes, Robert. I want you. I've always wanted you. I miss the connection we used to have. The way you used to look at me, touch me like I was the only woman in the world. I miss that too, he admitted. I miss feeling like you wanted me, not just what I could provide. I never meant to make you feel that way, I said, realizing with a pang how much I'd hurt him over the years. I've been selfish, focused on what I wasn't getting instead of appreciating what I had. He nodded, seeming to accept my words. I haven't been perfect either. I've been distant, preoccupied with work. I thought I was building a future for us, but I was neglecting our present. Can we start over? I asked. Not completely. I don't want to erase the good parts of the past 5 years. But can we try again? Try better. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood up and moved to the couch, sitting beside me. Not touching but closer. I think we can, he said. But we need help, Diane. Professional help. I'm thinking we should try marriage counseling. I nodded eagerly. Yes. I'd like that. And we need to set aside dedicated time for each other. No phones, no distractions. Just us. Date nights, I suggested. Like we used to have. Exactly. He hesitated, then reached for my hand. And about the bedroom stuff. I felt my cheeks warm. We can work on that too. We need to talk about it. Really talk. What you like, what I like. What's working, what isn't. No more assumptions. I'd like that, I said, squeezing his hand. I want us to please each other. To satisfy each other. He smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. Me too. We sat in silence for a moment, still holding hands, the first physical contact we'd had in days. It wasn't much, but it felt like a beginning. Are you hungry? Asked finally. The lasagna should be ready. Starving, he admitted. Haven't had a decent meal since I left. Mark's cooking not up to Elena's standards? I teased gently. Not even close. He stood still, holding my hand, pulling me up with him. Let's eat. As we walked to the kitchen together, I felt a glimmer of hope stronger than before. We weren't fixed, not by a long shot. We had a lot of work ahead of us, a lot of hard conversations and uncomfortable truths. But we were choosing each other again. Choosing our marriage. And for now that was enough. 3 months later, I found myself setting the dining room table for 4. The good china, the fancy napkins, a centerpiece of fresh flowers that I'd arranged myself. Elena had taught me how, one of the many unexpected gifts of our new friendship. Do you think the wine is chilled enough? Robert asked, peering into the refrigerator. He'd come home early to help me prepare, another new habit that I cherished. It should be fine, I assured him, adjusting a fork. They won't be here for another 20 minutes. Good. He came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, pressing a kiss to the side of my neck. That gives us time. I leaned back against him, savoring the warmth of his body against mine. Time for what? Time for me to tell you how beautiful you look tonight, he murmured against my skin. Time for me to tell you how much I love you. I turned in his arms, facing him. I love you too. We stood there for a moment, just holding each other, something we did often now. Small moments of connection throughout the day, reminders that we were choosing each other again and again. The past 3 months hadn't been easy. We'd had our ups and downs, our setbacks and breakthroughs. We'd started seeing Dr. Levine, a marriage counselor who specialized in couples struggling with intimacy issues. At first, those sessions had been awkward, painful even. But gradually we'd learned to communicate more openly, to express our needs without fear or shame. We'd established weekly date nights, time reserved exclusively for each other. Sometimes we went out, to restaurants, movies, concerts. Sometimes we stayed in, cooking together or just talking over wine. The important thing was that we were present with each other, fully engaged, no distractions. And yes, our physical relationship had improved too. We'd learned to talk about what we wanted, what made us feel good. We'd rediscovered the joy of pleasing each other, of taking our time, of exploring each other's bodies as if they were new territory. Sex was no longer a chore or an obligation but a genuine expression of love and desire. "What are you thinking about?" Robert asked, noticing my smile. "Us," I said honestly. "How far we've come." "We've done good work," he agreed, kissing my forehead. "Hard work. Worth it," I said, leaning up to kiss him gently. "Every difficult conversation, every uncomfortable therapy session, every tear. All of it worth it." The doorbell rang, interrupting our moment. "That must be them," Robert said, releasing me reluctantly. "Ready?" I nodded, straightening my dress. "Ready." Robert opened the front door, welcoming Mark and his wife Sarah with hugs and handshakes. This dinner was significant. The first time we'd entertained friends in our home since our near divorce. A celebration of sorts, marking our new beginning. "Your home is lovely," Sarah said as I took her coat. "And something smells amazing. Elena made her famous paella before she left," I explained, leading them to the living room. "She's been teaching me to cook, but I'm not quite at her level yet." "How is Elena?" Mark asked, accepting the glass of wine Robert offered him. "Still working for you guys?" "She is," Robert confirmed. "Though our relationship with her has changed quite a bit." Mark raised an eyebrow. "Oh." I exchanged a glance with Robert, a silent communication that had become second nature again. "She's become a friend," I explained. "More than just our housekeeper." "That's nice," Sarah said, though she looked slightly confused. We didn't elaborate. How could we explain that Elena had witnessed the lowest point of our marriage and somehow become instrumental in its salvation? Some things were too personal to share even with close friends. As we moved to the dining room, Robert caught my hand, giving it a squeeze. "You good?" he whispered. "Very good," I assured him. And I was better than good. For the first time in years, I felt whole, connected, alive. My marriage wasn't perfect. No relationship ever is. But it was real and honest and strong. That morning 3 months ago, when I'd blurted out my frustrations in front of Elena, had been both the worst and best moment of our marriage. The worst because it had brought us to the brink of divorce. The best because it had forced us to confront the truth and begin rebuilding. As I looked across the table at my husband, laughing at something Mark had said, I felt a surge of gratitude. We'd almost lost this. We'd almost lost each other. But instead we'd found our way back. To intimacy, to connection, to the deep, abiding love that had brought us together in the first place. Sometimes I realized the truth hurts. Sometimes it breaks things apart. But sometimes, if you're brave enough to face it together, it can also put things back together. Stronger, more beautiful, and more resilient than before. "A toast," Robert said suddenly, raising his glass. "To new beginnings." "To new beginnings," we all echoed. Under the table, Robert's free hand found mine, our fingers intertwining, a perfect fit. Just like us.